In the year 1931, a mysterious teacher named Abdullah shared a profound secret with Neville Goddard. This revelation would challenge every common belief about manifestation and reality. There is something I taught Neville Goddard in 1931 that most people still do not understand. A teaching that contradicts everything you have been told about manifestation, visualization, and attracting what you want. And once you grasp what I am about to reveal, you will never approach your desires the same way again. Because what most people call manifesting actually keeps them trapped in the very reality they are trying to escape. My name is Abdullah. I was Neville Goddard's teacher, and what I taught him changed not only his life, but transformed the understanding of consciousness itself. When Neville first came to me in 1931, he had delayed for months. A friend whose judgment he did not trust had insisted he attend one of my lectures, but Neville resisted. He put it off. Week after week, something told him not to go, but finally he came, and at the end of that meeting, I approached him. "Neville," I said, "you are 6 months late." He was startled. "How do you know my name?" he asked. "The brothers told me you would be here 6 months ago," I replied. Then I added, "I will remain until you have received all that I must give you. Then I will depart." He was confused. We had never met, but I knew he was coming. I lived on West 72nd Street in Manhattan, a modest room where I taught the Kabbalah, Hebrew mysticism, and the secret that most men die without discovering. Consciousness is the only reality. When Neville came to me, he wanted what everyone wants: money, success, freedom from his circumstances. But I told him something he did not want to hear. I said, "Start with self, find self, change that self." You see, Neville thought his problem was poverty. He thought if he could just get money, his life would improve. But poverty was not his problem. His identity was his problem. And until he understood the difference between wanting and being, he would remain exactly where he was. Let me explain what I mean by this. Most people approach their desires as someone who lacks, trying to attract what they do not have. They are poor, trying to manifest wealth. They are lonely, trying to visualize love. They are limited, trying to affirm freedom. And this is their fundamental error, an error that keeps them trapped in endless cycles of wanting, visualizing, and never receiving. Because you see, consciousness does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are. When you say, "I am," you are not speaking as a human being. You are speaking as God. The I am within you is the creative power of the universe announcing itself. And whatever comes after I am, you create. If you say I am poor, you create poverty. If you say I am trying to manifest, you create more trying and never arriving, because consciousness takes you at your word. It assumes you are telling the truth about yourself, and it creates circumstances to match that truth. This is not a metaphor. This is not positive thinking. This is the fundamental law of creation. Your current identity is what creates your current reality. If you want a different reality, you must assume a different identity. Not pretend, not fake it, assume it. There is a profound difference. When you pretend, you know you are lying. But when you assume, you are practicing a truth that has not yet manifested in your outer world. You are rehearsing who you are choosing to be until that identity becomes so natural that you are no longer practicing, until you simply are. And here's where most people fail. They think they can keep their old identity and add new things to it. They want to remain the person who lacks and somehow attract abundance, but it does not work that way. Now, before I go deeper into how you actually make this shift, let me ask you something. Have you been visualizing your desire for weeks, months, maybe even years, and nothing has changed? Have you been doing everything the teachers tell you to do, feeling it real, living in the end, and yet the outer world stays exactly the same? If so, then what I'm about to share will explain exactly why. Because the problem is not your technique. The problem is who you are being. While you practice the technique, you are still being the person who wants. And wanting is a state that creates more wanting, never having. Let me tell you about a couple that Neville once helped after he learned these principles from me. He was traveling to California and stopped in Chicago to visit friends. The husband was recovering from a severe illness. His doctor advised him to move to a one-story house, so he purchased one suited to his needs. But now he had a problem. There seemed to be no buyer for his large three-story home. When Neville arrived, the husband was very discouraged. So Neville explained to him and his wife what I had taught him about the law of constructive imagining. He told them to sleep that night physically in their old house, but mentally in their new home, to view the world from the new home, to imagine what things would sound like if they were already living there. Not thinking of the new house, but thinking from it, entering into the image, making it real. They promised they would try it. Neville left that night for California. The following evening, he was on the train traveling west when the conductor handed him a telegram. It read, "House sold midnight last." Midnight. The very night Neville had taught them. 1 week later, they wrote and told him that the exact night he left Chicago, they fell asleep physically in the old house, but mentally in the new, viewing the world from the new home, imagining how things would sound if this were true. They were awakened that very night from their sleep to be told the house was sold. Do you understand what happened here? They did not try to attract a buyer. They did not visualize selling the house. They became the people who had already sold it and moved. They occupied that state of consciousness, and the outer world had no choice but to conform. This is the principle that most people never grasp. They are so focused on what they want that they never understand who they must be. They want the money, the relationship, the success. But they never ask themselves, who is the person who has these things? And more importantly, am I being that person right now? Because if you are not, then no amount of visualization will bring it to you. No amount of affirmations will create it. You must die to who you were and be resurrected as who you choose to be. And most people are not willing to do this. This is why I want to offer you something that will help you with exactly this challenge. It is called the Manifest Reset. This is a guide containing 5 specific resets for when you fall out of the state of your wish fulfilled. Because you will fall out. Your old identity will try to reclaim its territory. Doubt will creep in. Circumstances will seem to contradict your assumption. And in those moments, you need a way to reset, to return to who you are choosing to be. These 5 resets are based on everything I taught Neville, everything that allowed him to transform his life, everything that proved the law of consciousness works. To receive the Manifest Reset Guide, simply comment the word reset below this video right now. These resets will show you how to stop forcing the feeling when it feels fake, how to return to your desired state when doubt appears, how to maintain your new identity when the old one tries to return. Comment reset now and continue listening. Now, let me show you something even more profound, something that will prove to you that consciousness is the only reality. Neville once told a story about his nephew Billy, who was dying of cancer at age 17. His sister was devastated, and Neville, being in New York while his family was in the Caribbean, wanted to comfort her. So he did something remarkable. He sat in his living room in New York City and assumed he was in his nephew's room. He imagined occupying the same space that Billy occupied. He assumed that when his sister entered the room, she would see him, Neville, instead of her son. He made this so real in his imagination that he actually felt himself there. When he came out of this imaginal act, a friend who had arrived for cocktails said to him, "Neville, you always seem so light and gay, but tonight you seem so heavy." So he told her what he had just done. 8 days later, a letter arrived from his sister. She wrote, "Neville, I do not understand it. I went into Billy's room and I could not see my son. I saw you. I walked over to the bed and looked at what should be Billy, but I am looking at you. I rubbed my eyes. I did everything to bring about normal vision, but I could not see Billy. I only saw you and I could not understand it." 8 days earlier, at the exact time Neville had done his imaginal act, his sister had seen him 2,000 miles away. His friend in New York was a witness to what he told her he would do, and the letter confirmed it happened exactly as he imagined. This proves that you must be wherever you are in imagination. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the real world. Now, I know what you're thinking. Abdullah, this sounds beautiful, but when I try to feel it real, it feels fake. I know I am lying to myself. I know my circumstances have not changed. And this is where most people fail. They try to force the feeling. They try to manufacture emotions they do not genuinely feel. They strain and eventually give up. but you are approaching it wrong. You are trying to change your feelings instead of changing your identity. When you focus on changing your feelings, you are still operating as your old self trying to feel differently. You are the poor person trying to feel rich, and your entire being rejects it as false. But when you change your identity first, the feelings follow naturally. When you simply decide, I am wealthy, not I want to be wealthy, but I am, and you occupy that state, your internal conversations change naturally. The way you walk changes. The way you make decisions changes. Not because you are forcing it, but because that is who you now are. Evidence does not create your identity. Your identity creates the evidence. The outer world is nothing but a reflection of your inner state. It is a mirror. And you cannot change what you see in a mirror by trying to change the reflection. You must change what stands before the mirror. When you are the wealthy person, when you have fully assumed that identity and consciousness, the evidence of wealth must appear, not because you attracted it, but because the outer world has no choice but to conform to your inner conviction. This is law, the same law that governs the rising of the sun. Consciousness is the only reality. Everything else is simply consciousness pushed out. Years later, Neville taught a woman who came to his lectures. She was 55 years old and had nothing. She needed a job but had no car to look for one. She was behind in her rent. She had no proper clothes. Her bank account was almost empty. No family to help her. No friends she could turn to. She had reached the absolute bottom, but she had been listening to what I had taught Neville. And in her desperation, she decided to test it. At first, she tried to imagine having everything she needed, but she needed so many things that by the time she finished imagining them all, she was exhausted. Then she heard Neville speak about capturing a feeling instead, so she changed her approach. Instead of listing everything she needed, she simply repeated to herself as she fell asleep, "Isn't it wonderful? Something marvelous is happening to me now, not tomorrow, not next week, right now." She would say this and feel the way she would expect to feel if something wonderful were actually happening. She did this every night for 2 months, and then one day she met a casual acquaintance she had not seen in months. They talked briefly and parted. She forgot about it completely. 1 month later to the day, this man came to her apartment and handed her a certified check for $20,500. The story that unfolded seemed like a dream. It concerned a friend she had not seen or heard from in more than 25 years who had become wealthy and out of nowhere sent her this money. Do you understand? She did not visualize receiving money. She assumed the identity of someone to whom something wonderful was happening, and the outer world conformed. This is what separates those who succeed from those who struggle endlessly. The ones who succeed understand that consciousness creates reality. Not effort, not technique, not positive thinking. Consciousness, your state of being, who you are in this moment. And when you change who you are, when you shift your identity from the person who wants to the person who has, as everything changes. Not because you made it happen, but because the world has no choice but to reflect who you are. You cannot change your state through effort. You cannot force yourself into a new identity. The harder you try, the more you reinforce your current identity as someone who is trying, someone who does not have, someone who is becoming but has not yet become. So how do you make this shift? You must stop identifying with your circumstances and start identifying with your imagination. Your imagination is not fantasy. Your imagination is the real world. What you see with your physical eyes is the past. It is the already hardened consequence of previous states. But what you imagine, what you assume to be true in your consciousness right now, that is the present. That is the only reality. And when you learn to dwell in that imagined state, when you learn to make it feel more real than your circumstances, the circumstances must shift to match your imagination. Now, many of you are wondering, how long does it take? How long until I see the evidence? And this is the wrong question because asking how long means you are still identifying with your current circumstances. You are still being the person who does not have. But when you fully assume your desired identity, you are not waiting for anything. You already have it in consciousness, which is the only place anything truly exists. And when you have it in consciousness, you are not concerned with time. You are simply being who you are. And the evidence appears in its own time in ways you could not have predicted. This is grace. This is the effortless unfolding of consciousness into form. But most people never experience this because they never fully let go of their old identity. They keep one foot in their desired state and one foot in their current circumstances. They practice their new identity for a few minutes during visualization, then spend the rest of the day being their old self. And this split state produces no results. You must make a decision. Who am I going to be? And then you must be that person consistently, not just during meditation, but all day in every moment. When you notice your old identity trying to reclaim its territory, you gently redirect, you reset, you return to your chosen state. And this is exactly why the Manifest Reset Guide is so valuable. These resets give you practical tools for those moments when you fall out of your desired state, when doubt creeps in, when circumstances contradict your assumption, when your old identity whispers that nothing has changed. If you have not already, comment reset below this video right now. The transformation from your old identity to your new identity is not always smooth. The old self does not die quietly. It fights, it argues, it presents evidence of why you cannot be who you are choosing to be. And in those moments, a reset is the difference between transformation and remaining stuck. Comment reset now. Get the guide, because what I am about to share next requires you to have these tools. Everything I have shared with you comes down to this one principle. You are not trying to get anything. You are not trying to become anyone. You already are everything you desire to be in consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality. The person you see in the mirror, the circumstances around you, these are not reality. These are reflections, the past made visible. But who you are in your imagination, who you assume yourself to be right now, that is reality. That is the creative power shaping your future right now. So stop trying to change your circumstances. Stop trying to make things happen. Instead, recognize who you already are in consciousness. And I'm talking about affirmations. I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm talking about a fundamental shift in identity, a recognition that the I am within you is God. And whatever you attach to that I am, you become. If you say, I am wealthy, you are wealthy in consciousness. And wealth must appear because your world is nothing but consciousness pushed out. If you say, I am loved, you are loved in consciousness, and love must appear. If you say, I am successful, you are successful in consciousness, and success must manifest because manifestation is automatic. It is law. You do not make it happen. You assume it is already done. And you walk in that assumption until the outer world confirms what is already true in consciousness. This is what I taught Neville. This is what he lived. This is what transformed his life and the lives of everyone he taught. And now it is your turn. Decide who you are going to be, not who you want to be, who you are right now in this moment. Decide and then occupy that state. Make it your dwelling place. Return to it constantly. And when you fall out, reset. The 5 resets in the Manifest Reset Guide will help you maintain your chosen state even when everything seems to contradict it. These are not theories. These are not philosophies. These are practical tools based on the law that governs all creation, the law that I taught Neville, the law that he proved over and over, the law that you can prove starting right now. Make the decision. Comment reset if you have not already. And most importantly, assume your desired identity and refuse to be moved from it. Because when you fully occupy your chosen state of consciousness, the entire universe must rearrange itself to match that state. This is not belief. This is not hope. This is law, and the law is impartial. It works for everyone who applies it. It works all the time. It will work for you, but only if you apply it. Only if you stop being who you were and become who you choose to be. The power is within you. It has always been within you. It is the I am. Use it consciously and watch as your world transforms to reflect your inner conviction. Now, if you truly want to go deeper into this teaching, if you want to understand the advanced identity work that I taught Neville privately, the work he rarely shared publicly, then I invite you to watch the next video. It is called Beyond Feeling It Real, the Advanced Identity Shift Abdullah only taught Neville privately. In that video, I will reveal the techniques Neville used to maintain his new identity, Even when his entire outer world contradicted it, the inner practices that allowed him to remain faithful to his assumption until it hardened into fact. This is the work that separates those who occasionally manifest from those who live in permanent fulfillment. The video is appearing on your screen right now. Watch it and continue your journey into the deepest teachings of consciousness and creation. Thus, the teaching of Abdullah reminds us that true change begins from within. Embrace your identity as the creator and watch your world transform. Subscribe